Mr. Love, living in America is not affordable for many people. What will you do to lower costs for the everyday Nebraskan?
Well, I think the idea of living in America is more costly, but it's an evolutionary process. I don't no longer look at it as a picture that we take. It's more of a movie that we're in, meaning that for a given quarter, things could be better or worse. And if you stop at any point, you don't capture the bigger picture. I do think things are harder because of prices in America for so many reasons. And so I give you all of that because the solutions vary with the problems. They come from different places. They could come from the lack of valid and smooth supply chains. And so what could I do to help that? Well, what caused that problem? What causes, well, it may be that we have in the Congress a chance to stop something nonsensical. You do, I know that you know that I'm running for the United States Senate and that the Republican president nominee is calling for tariffs, and the tariffs will increase that problem, not lower it. It will increase. And so if you're in the Senate, then you'll fight against that with the president or whoever. So I'm not waffling. I'm just saying the cause of the problem can be anything from that. It could be that, and we're very close to being in conflicts in at least two very big arenas, one in Ukraine, the other in the Middle East. And if something would happen that would throw the oil supply into a tizzy, that will increase. So what can we do? I think it's misinformation and really not being forthright. If you jump right in and say, well, what I can do is this, because that might not even be the solution to the problem that is created. I do think that we need the bigger answer to that question is I think that Congress needs to work really hard. We'll have to see how the numbers fall after November to be less divisive and more focused on solutions than our side winning. We need to come together like we tried to do for the border and have bipartisan solutions. And then we can together figure out the solution to the problem that initiates from all the possibilities that can do. For one more example is our economy and the cost of living may very well be affected by these storms. And so to come on the wonderful show of yours and say, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop the weather from doing that to you. Or something that ridiculous can be said, and in some cases are being said. I just think the congressman, the senator, need to be attentive to working together across the aisle so that as these things occur, we can be responsibly and realistically responsive together. Not one senator can even make that happen, but it has to be both groups working together.
Absolutely. And you mentioned prices. What will you do to make health care more affordable? Should the Affordable Care Act stay in place?
Yeah, well, that's a two-part piece, because I do think that for health care to remain affordable to more people, we do have to keep the affordable health care stay in place. And so I just think, and I can tell you now, I'm an advocate for the Obamacare or the affordable health care. I'm an advocate, and that will help. If we start to dismantle it, especially the way the opposition appears to gonna do it piecemeal, we've got real problems for people going to fall through the cracks. Healthcare already has places where we can fall through the cracks. We can fall through the cracks with child care needs and access to health care for that. We can fall through the cracks with exaggerated and what I think is accelerating mental health issues. All of those things, I think we need to be more attentive to the cause and effect even on that. But again, I think it boils down to both sides of the aisle working together. If we're going to be fighting about the survival of affordable health care, we're going to be wasting a lot of time. We ought to try to evaluate it, see if we can make it better. Let's work together, deal with what concerns there are. But this country, I remember when I was in college, by the way, that was a long time ago. And don't try to remember, you don't know nothing.
No, I understand,
but I
understand.
remember that the cost of health care, I think it was in the 20s, 20% of the cost of an employee. You know, that cost now is twice or almost 3 times, it's not quite 3 times. Now, for corporations and organizations to provide health care to individuals is 3 times that. So whether or not you're getting it from your corporation or your self-business, that cost is skyrocketing. Right? Some of it is geared and rooted in gouging prices from the suppliers. We found that even in affordable health care, we forced the competition to drive the costs down, and then we put caps on things that should not. This recent thing that the Biden administration did to put caps on very important insulin, for example. I know people who their lives almost changed just because now they only have to pay $35 max when they were paying more than $35 every time they got a new dose. And so these kinds of things are there. We do have a challenge. Healthcare is one of our major slices of the pie. That people can make sense and try to work together is part of what the challenge is going to be for whoever governs.
And you mentioned that conflict. Now, with conflicts in Israel and Ukraine, what should be the United States' role in these wars? Is there a point where you would support U.S. troops on the ground? And who do you support in these wars?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I support wholeheartedly, aggressively, and as a senator, I will be a voice of reason in the Middle East, and I want to come back to that. But I want to quickly say I'm all in for supporting Ukraine up to the point of sending ground troops there, but that we should provide the resources, the hardware, technical assistance to Ukraine, or whatever it takes as they become somewhat of a member of NATO. I say somewhat; they've been accepted, but I don't know, hadn't been implemented. But they now are under our NATO umbrella. And then the implications if the United States backs off to some degree, as many of the Republicans, quite frankly, are suggesting, is a lot of people are taking serious, and I really think the Republicans know better than that. But again, they're taking sides just because that's one side versus the other. But if we let Ukraine fall, it's just like bowling balls. Putin, with his crazy self and autocratic self, will be knocking on and going into other countries, and we have to stop this where it's emanating, and not trying to be his buddy and all of that, and acting like that that the peace settlement for this is for them to give up the land that he just took from them. Yeah, that'd be a great peace for him, but what about Ukraine and the people and all the people that have died? That's on Ukraine, to answer your question. And I think I answer your question as it relates to boots on the ground. No, on that. On either war, the Ukraine war or the war in the Middle East. My policy thoughts are that I support Israel, but I don't support leadership right now in Israel that will continually escalate the war, and it's being escalated on both sides, but I'm focusing on Israel because that's our partner, so to speak. And so somebody, if I'm not running for president, but it's time for senators to speak up loudly and force this administration. I think they're doing a lot, but to take a hard stand with Israel for them to cease fire and get the hostages released and to negotiate, a long-term peace. You can't do it by going tit for tat. It will never happen. And so somebody's got to step up and be the strong arm. And the strong arm is going to look weak to some people or being accused of being weak, but it's the right thing to do. We need to stop this war, stop ceasefire, and then that'll give chance both sides take a breather and try to get at the negotiating table without the carnage of people.
Absolutely. And you talked about conflict overseas. Let's talk about an internal conflict within the United States, which is the conflict, and it's a hot topic, abortion. What is your stance on abortion? Are there exceptions, and should we have a nationwide law or let the states decide?
Yeah, I think we should return to the status we had prior to this recent Supreme Court decision, kicking it out as a national policy, kicking it back to the states. I think that's not a good policy, and it's proven not to be. It's put the whole thing in disarray, quite frankly. Beside the idea, it's putting so many women and their children at danger because of so many examples now that we could cite where women are faced with life or death decisions with their doctor, but the doctor won't act because the state law will put him in jail and make him lose his license. And so we're losing it's nonsensical. But my overall umbrella to all of that is I surely am for a woman's right to choose. And that right should be between her and her doctor, and not have the government decide about how she handles our body. That includes birthing and all the other pieces, IVF and all of those other aspects. We need to get out of that business that we're now into really deep in the 20 or so states. Of course, in Nebraska, we have a measure on the ballot, and I'm surely hoping people will make sense of that. We have two measures, quite frankly, and if, with your permission, I surely would give my view on 434. It should be voted against, and on 439, it should be voted for. And basically what that is providing the choice with some exceptions, as you mentioned. I just think we don't need to worry as much about the exceptions if we could worry first about who makes the choice. And so I'm surely strongly for women to make their choice. This is going to be interesting, but very strategic and very important for our state to show itself, show its hands. We'll see after this election. It'll be maybe part of my vote. Women who agree with me would tend to vote for me against my opponent, who's not for a woman's right to choose and for a strong ban on abortion, just willy-nilly, with whatever exceptions there are. And so people can make that choice, even with the candidates running, myself and Pete Ricketts in this case, but also the law in which we will operate under. And I surely think that the state will not be the same no matter what vote there is, but I'm surely hope that we make sense. And I think women will let folks know what they feel.
Definitely. And what needs to be changed in our immigration system, and what will you do to make that happen?
Yeah, I would, and I don't want to sound as if I have a little pat answer for these, but I surely feel strongly. First of all, the historical piece of this in most recent years is there's only one way to do this, and that is both sides. It needs to be bipartisan. We do know what the problem is. and we do know what many of the solutions are to a smooth path for folks who want to get in this country to do it in a legal way, and a path, by the way, without sounding like, but getting off the subject, sounds like I'm getting off subject, but in this state, our farmers and our ranchers, and in many cases of our smaller cities, we need labor. We need, the people are sitting in tents and waiting on the politicians to figure something out. We're putting our own state at risk. And I scold Ricketts and the other Republicans who refused to sign the bipartisan bill, which would have got us started in the right direction. I scolded them because they did it for political reasons, and they ignored the solution that was possible, but also the fact that we've got a great need in this state for labor, and that would have helped. And so my solution is to be a strong advocate for bipartisanship. And it will have a lot to do with who our next president will be, because both of the two candidates have a different view of how to stop it. And I surely am agreeing with Kamala Harris right now that she's going to resubmit that bipartisan bill and try to get that passed.
You mentioned farmers and ranchers. The Farm Bill keeps getting kicked down the road.
Yeah.
Would you make this a priority? And
Yes.
are these changes, do you support them?
Yeah, the answer, quick, is yes. I am a strong advocate for the Farm Bill, and I want to maybe take this opportunity to make a big announcement that I'm so proud of, that is only 48 hours, is that the Nebraska Farmers Union, PAC, endorsed me. And I want to have you and your viewers take a deep breath, because after all, I'm running against a former governor who was in there for 8 years and 2 years as a senator, and the farmers chose to not endorse him and endorse me, and they endorsed Deb Fischer. And so I'm saying that I think that the farmers are trying to send a message that I make more sense than a former governor does on this issue. And yes, I'm for getting a farm bill. Let's take that on. And see, everything gets affected when you get divisive in Congress. We can't get anything done. That farm bill is a priority should be a priority for Congress, but it's surely going to be one for me.
And Nebraskans are concerned about trade, with tension rising with some of our adversaries and threats about tariffs. What kind of trade policy do you support? Well,
I think what we need to do is not start with trade. Trade will be part of the formula. We need to work out quid pro quos with countries, China, for example, and then some of our other, not our allies, but some that are in the gray area, and some definitely. I think we just ought to cross out doing business with Russia and anybody and put things in place that would make it difficult for anyone else to do it, because they've become tyrants now in the world. But we can work things out with China. We don't have to put tariff. That sounds so good in a meeting where people haven't studied the issue. Tariffs will increase the prices, and it will not help the suppliers, which is on our side. We need to have a comprehensive relationship with countries like China, and then we work out what is the implication to trade, not lead with tariffs, like I'm gonna do this and what you gonna do, and so forth. There's some things that we need to spank some of the country's hands on how they're handling other things. It's a very complex world, and the solutions, quite frankly, have to be complex, but have to recognize the complexity and not be so autocratic. Else, then we'll do stupid things like tariffs. The economists all agree, by the way, just for the fun of it, I'll tell you that I have a degree in economics from University of Nebraska in
Nice.
Lincoln. But the economist surely, just puts holes in things. We're having a tough time in the country to discern the difference between talking and making up stuff and just talk and getting the factual basis for people to analyze. So many of your viewers don't have the time or the wherewithal to analyze things that people say. I could just make something up, and people are making things up, and it has implications in every direction. And part of this is about how we handle our trade relationships and then our trade policies. But I am for an open world economy.
And do you think Nebraska should be a winner-take-all state?
I almost laughed. So the answer is no. And no. And I have a couple comments, but simply the idea of a electoral vote that can be split based on a congressional district is one that all 48 states, quite frankly, should evaluate. We're really, the Electoral College is not working for the right reasons. We've had, I don't know how many presidential races in a row where the popular vote winner did not become the president, because the way the electoral system is set up, it warps the popular vote when you turn it into popular vote to electoral vote. And so the idea of winner take all is the problem. Is how dare you go into Nebraska? You have 3 congressional districts. One of them would feel so strongly that more people would vote in the entire congressional district for one candidate, yet the state will cast all of the electoral votes in a winner take all to the other candidate. Or what about the vote? That's no representation. That's not fair. That's not democratic. And so we had the wisdom back in the '92 to change that, and Maine did too. I'm saying 2 things. One is, obviously, I'm against winner take all, but the second thing is that really the country ought to be looking at us as a leader, not us looking at them as a leader. Again, Donald Trump had the nerve to come into Nebraska, line up his Republican enablers, including Pete Ricketts and all the rest of them, and say, this is what I want. And they all, like puppy dogs, went and tried to get it done. They failed, but they only failed by 1 vote. But I surely think it's intellectually not good. It doesn't work mentally, and it's surely, from a fairness and a democracy standpoint, it's the wrong thing to do to have a winner take all, period. So in our case, we have gone in a positive direction. The last thing we need to do is go back. It seems to be a lot of folks want to go back to stuff. The stuff they want to go back to is stuff that didn't work, or didn't work for most people.
Yes, sir. And Mr. Love, once again, thank you for your time. And is there anything else you would like to say to the people about your campaign?
Yeah, I like to say this. I was a long shot when I met with you in January, and we talked about my candidacy, and I'm still a long shot, but not as long. I think that after traveling the state and campaigning and listening and all of that, I think that I have a viable path that I could have a great upset in this race. And I'd ask people to put party and geographics aside and just vote what they consider to be their best choice. Because between me and Pete Ricketts, the choice is so clear that people can do it. They just need to make the choice, make the move, not just because I'm my wonderful self, but because we don't believe. We just talked about a couple issues, but I could go down 10 issues and we're absolutely in different places. People can look at that, and I'm asking, don't let your party hold you back. Just make the choice based on if you agree. I want to say that if I am elected, that I'm announcing also today, beside the wonderful endorsement from the Farmers Union, that I'll be commissioning, as soon as I get into office, 3 study sessions to assess the needs, so a needs assessment in all 3 separately congressional districts of what the needs are in each one of those congressional districts, and have that commission, the people in the commission bipartisanly come up with documenting the needs and then making recommendations, and I'll get to working on that. My focus as a senator would be the needs of the people, not the needs of my career.
Absolutely. Well, Mr. Love, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate you.
Thanks for watching. Please hit the subscribe button. And for the latest news anytime, download the NTV News app.